Moni's here. All right, well, I'll let you guys get settled. As you guys are sitting down, thanks so much. We're at the second to last presentation of the day, so full steam ahead. But this is our design team. I'm Elise, Heather, and Reggie. And we're the UX design team that got the opportunity to work with Startup Education, who so thoughtfully decided to come and also invite the rest of their community on webcam. So you guys are streaming. So a little bit about Startup Education. So Startup Education is a global community of passionate individuals who are adamant about changing the future of education. And the members in the community vary drastically. They can be designers, developers, entrepreneurs, as well as definitely importantly educators. But these members of the community are growing and continuing to change and grow with the community. The one way that Startup Education really likes to leverage the idea of entrepreneurship in this ed tech community is through Startup Weekend education. This is, for you guys who are not familiar with Startup Weekends, Startup Weekends are a 54-hour-long hackathon-type weekend where the end goal is to create education-themed startups that will, again, better the future of education. In addition, as you can see up here, there are not only education-themed startup weekends, but there's also maybe big data-themed, maker-themed, food-themed, women-themed. There's a variety of them. And the one that we're focusing on right now is Startup Education. So moving forward, just again, a note on how global Startup Education and Startup Weekends are. You can see the variety of cities that are listed here, and all of the cities that have their own Startup Weekends, they really try and create their own identity, and as you can tell, the users behind it and the community leaders are very passionate.
So to get things started off, we really dove into the mind of an ed tech community member. The people here are all those stakeholders we interviewed. They include community leaders, Startup Weekend organizers, representatives from other ed tech initiatives like Maker Ed, and also a community manager from a co-working space. So we talked to them about their day-to-day experiences, their pain points, what their challenges were, and really started to get a sense of who they were and how we could help them. So through talking with these 9 stakeholders, we developed 3 initial personas. The first one is the community builder. So this is someone who's starting off the EdTech community in their area. So they're kind of going solo at the moment, running the meetups on their own. They're really looking for support. They're looking to bring other people into the EdTech movement. The community leader is someone in a slightly more established community. They also run the Startup Weekends in their own communities. They're looking to share their advice with others. The super connector is someone who's a part of a very well-established ed tech community, and they've kind of taken on an advisor role. So this is someone who has their hands in different communities within ed tech, so within the K-12 community or like local government policy, and they're really good at connecting all the right people with each other to make stuff happen.
So all these personas, all these community members, main commonality, main common goal is to build the community. So we really wanted to dive in to see what the process is for building a community, specifically an ed tech community. So we decided that the best way to do this would be through a user journey map, where we could identify the pain points, but also then those like points of like aha, the moments of glory. So we started out with, as you can see, stage 1 is seeking community, and this is the community builder. We're calling him Dave, the person that Heather mentioned on the previous slide. And so Dave is going through the baby steps of just trying to get people in his community, realizing who is interested in ed tech and who will join him in this movement. So maybe it's one-on-one meetings, it might be blogging, it might be consulting other startups, and eventually it's hosting a meetup. And that's definitely a pivotal point in that community. Once they have that meetup established, then it's a matter of really generating pertinent content and getting more people to come to these meetups. So we jump to stage 2. Stage 2 is defining the community. And in defining the community, we're connecting members, we're strengthening the network, and then eventually they are getting enough momentum where they want to host another event aside from a meetup. So this more often than not, is the Startup Weekend. And Startup Weekend has this amazing potential to really be this catalyst for momentum. And as you can see, based on the arrows and the circle, this is really an iterative stage, and it keeps going and going until the community gains enough momentum to jump to stage 3, which is maintaining the community. And this is at the point where the community has become this self-sustaining innovation ecosystem, as we like to call it. And here, a variety of things can happen. This is kind of a stage that we're still developing out, but maybe it's a co-working space, having an official website, a tech lab, sharing documents, empowering other leaders, et cetera, et cetera. So in having this really macro look at defining the community and building the community, as well as having the micro look from all the stakeholders interviews where we got all of these personal pain points and their ideas of solutions for the problems and issues in ed tech right now, we had a lot of things to deal with and really needed to sift through it and find that impactful problem that we could solve in this 2 weeks' time with a lot of resources and have it be really purposeful for this community. So in order to illustrate this narrowing down of the problem to an actionable problem, we are going to use the power of analogy, specifically the sandwich analogy.
All right, so our first approach is the everything sandwich, as you can see here. Thank you, Reggie. Show it to everybody. So this is what happens when you provide a lot of solutions to a lot of different user needs. It kind of just becomes a really big mess that nobody wants.
And doesn't satisfy any of their needs.
The trendy sandwich solution is assuming you want it because it's beautiful and cool, and why wouldn't you want this sandwich? So again, that's not the right approach exactly. And finally, the build your own sandwich approach is by providing guidelines, you can cater to your needs and maximize the potential for a successful and satisfactory outcome. So we applied, this analogy applies to our process since we had 2 different solutions before we arrived on our solution that we'll explain to you now.
So basically, the 2 insights that we got from our research is that the startup weekends are very powerful and empowering for the community, and so they have a great influence. The second insight, which is more like a pain point, is that the community leaders don't really utilize the resources available to them, so we thought that we could probably improve on that. And here's a little video to give you a little bit insight on what it feels like to start up the weekend, how to start up the weekend.
The momentum it can generate. One moment, guys. Yeah, you know what? We're just going to get these going.
We'll send out the link later.
We'll send it out in maybe, yeah.
So more inspiring numbers. Today we have 1,500 startup weekends. 726 cities around the world are involved with Startup Weekend, and an estimated 1,205 startup weekends in 2015.
Which is super exciting.
So this is Chris, and this is someone who's in the stage 2 of the process that Reggie just illuminated for us. Chris is a leader and startup weekend organizer in his community, which is in Austin, Texas. He is a programmer by day, and he organizes startup weekends and meetups within his community in his free time. He used to be involved in, used to be an educator. He taught math for K through 12. He is really passionate about growing and engaging the community. To get a better look at the life of Chris, we did some day in the life analysis, looking at his spare time and stress level throughout the day. So as you can see, as his day goes on, his spare time decreases, his stress level increases, and he really needs support and to balance his full-time job with building his community.
So now what? So now we know about Chris and his pain points and what he needs. Also that he's super passionate about growing his community, and also the potential for Startup Weekend to give him that momentum to continue the process of growing his community. So we know that Startup Weekends are this amazing catalyst for momentum. However, the resources for the organizers are difficult to access as well as not intuitively organized. So our solution was to amend the current site to make a more seamless flow of, first, application for organizers interested in hosting the event, and then secondly, creating this organizer's homepage that would collate all of the resources in one space for the organizers to access at all times throughout the planning process.
So to kick this off, we decided to analyze what it's like right now for someone organizing a startup weekend to go through the current flow and apply to be a startup weekend organizer and then access the resources. So this is the current site mapped out with a few points of frustration highlighted here. So from this, we learned that we definitely needed to make the user flow a lot more intuitive and decrease the number of clicks from the homepage to the application. We also realized we really needed to create one place to house all the organizers' guides and all their resources so they could access it easily, even after they have applied for the event. After talking to our client, we had a few additional features we felt would be a really good integration with the current site. We wanted organizers to be able to share their tips after hosting an event, and we wanted organizers who are going to host an event be able to access their advice. Additionally, Startup Weekend and Startup EDU have two different sites, and they currently have two different signups for the event. So we wanted to streamline that process and make them seamless transition from site to site through the application process and have a central hub for the resources.
All right, so now we're getting into our iterative design phase. So where we're going to do a variety of prototypes, which we'll lead you through, and then usability testing and the feedback that we got. So for our first iteration, we were really looking to just reorganize the content as it was currently on the site and just try and make it a little bit more accessible for the organizers coming to it. So in this, like I said, we kind of broke things into categories that were a little bit more attainable and trying to prioritize the items that we thought were the most pertinent for the organizers to use throughout the process. Some of the feedback that we got, well, actually I'd like to note that for our first step round of feasibility testing, we used a remote testing service and using it with the stakeholders that we had initially interviewed, which is really interesting. Those stakeholders are big community leaders, as we before mentioned, and them going through this first iteration was super helpful because they'll most likely be people who are going to be using that site or have used something similar to it. So some of the major feedback was they were really looking for us to better define the value of each tool. There was still a lot of similarity between what we were calling them, the initial terminology, and they weren't sure which tools were important and why they should be using them and at which point in their journey. In addition, there's the issue of the density of the content and the text and a lot of things for them to go through and not quickly scannable for them. So the second iteration, we really wanted to make the organizer resources prominent and easily accessible from every section of the site. So we have an easy way to jump to the homepage, or jump to the organizer homepage from the initial homepage, and then also a way to always navigate back to it in the global navigation. In this second round of usability testing, we first tested people on their ability to get through the application process and then tested them on the task of going through all the resources. So that first task of getting to the application process, we first had them go through the existing site and how long it took them to get there, just to the application, and the average was 171 seconds, or 2 minutes and 51 seconds. And then after they went through our prototype and got to get to the application, the average time was 16 seconds, which was a 90% decrease of time, which was astounding. And I think that the main reason was just a major call to action on the homepage for anyone who's interested in hosting an event. But that was really successful. Regarding the resources, there were still a couple amendments that we felt needed to be made based on the feedback. One of them was setting up the context of the startup weekend. A lot of people felt like when they got to the application, that startup weekend was a really big deal, and that they weren't prepared to host a startup weekend, and they maybe really need to do their homework before they even click on that application button. And we addressed this in our prototype in the next slide, and Reggie will address that. Also, the hierarchy and the order of the resources listed. So hierarchy of text, making it, again, easier to read since there's such a density of text. And then order of which we're listing the resources so it makes sense and it's more intuitive and intentional. In addition, to aid in the scannability of the content, adding maybe icons or imagery to allow people to see things better, more quickly. All right, so we're going to go to our prototype. Reggie's going to lead us through.
So first and foremost, our goal was to have a spotlight on functionality versus design. I think the design will follow after you have great function. So with that being said, so I'm a new user, and here we created and organized an event button, which kind of helped expedite the process of actually getting to this spot. So we added that button right there. And next, it brought us to the what can external can do for you. So one of the amendments that we added was video. So instead of reading all the content, we thought video would help a new user understand best practices and get an idea of what it's like. So here we edited down the content, and it has basic steps for you to apply for membership.
By adding the video, like Reggie said, we were really able to minimize the content on the screen and have it be something that's a little bit more interactive for the users and something that they're more actually likely to click through and watch as opposed to just being hit with this wall of text.
So next, you would choose your event theme, education, and then you would apply to the event application. Go through that and submit. And so here another amendment we added was a thank you dollar box to let the new organizer know that their information has been processed. And we also added a call to action, get started organizing the event button to lead you to the organizer homepage. So the organizer homepage is pretty much like our MVP that houses all our resources. And to give you an idea, we'll go through each category. So how to run a startup weekend, you click on that. As you can see, the page is reorganized. One call to action that was needed for the content to be reorganized was a menu that would house all the categories and have them in one place. So as you can see, you would be able to click getting started. We'll say forming a team, and that would lead you to the forming a team page. And here you have the content and images laid out and easy to navigate. Yeah.
By creating this side navigation, it's also easier to browse through the content and get a sense of what you're really looking for if you have an idea in mind of maybe you really know that you know how to get started, but you don't know how to market the event. So another exercise that we went through was really making sure that these initial headers made sense for the content that was in them and also would be something important to the organizers coming to this page.
And so next we have the organizer checklist, which was a resource that they already had, but we thought was very important to bring to the forefront because it helped the new organizer prepare for their event. So we just wanted to spotlight that in our categories. Next we have forms and templates. So this category, again, you see the drop-down menu. You can easily get any documents like PDFs, working Google Docs, and it's very organized and a clean way of getting information. Next, we have Swoop. So Swoop's like a third-party tracking system that organizers use to help track the progress of their event from beginning to end. So here we thought a nice amendment would be adding like a feedback as you close out your event. As you can see, you click on give feedback, and you'll be able to write whatever you feel is important.
So an issue that our client had expressed was that whenever they ask past organizers to share their insights and give feedback, they just already checked out so much because it's been a lot to put on these events, and it's just hard to get feedback. They're really busy. So in adding this to the necessary step for them to close out the event and also to get reimbursed for the event, kind of tying that in with each other, we thought that that was pretty simple, and because we could at least get a couple sentences from them that would be really, really important and helpful for other organizers.
The last category, advice from organizers, Jessica and John wanted some sort of like feedback platform that would generate just like people who have experienced the weekends already to give back to the new users. And so we created this platform that would help express people's thoughts. And we did a lot of user testing on this, and we got a lot of good feedback, and we thought it would add a nice dimension to the resource page.
And this advice would come from the section we just discussed in this loop closing out the event. So that's where it would be allocated initially. There could be future steps with having people do it through the site, but that was a way to initially get some responses from people. So,
so as you can see from our first iteration to our current iteration, we've been able to dramatically improve the flow of getting to the application and also finding the resources that you need. There are still some resounding pain points. Mainly, they deal with the amount of content and the density of the content that's on the site. So we're suggesting a site-wide content and audit to consolidate those resources. Narrow down the content for readability. Currently, the amount of text on the site is it's pretty dense, so getting people to actually use those resources is really important. We found out that 70% of readers leave a web page after the third paragraph because there's too much content. So we suggest amending that through using Nielsen's rule of twos, which is focusing on the first two words of a sentence, the first two sentences of a paragraph, and the first two paragraphs of a page is the most important. Additionally, we have some other features that we think would be great to integrate into the site, and one is integrating the checklist with a personal calendar so that organizers can stay on track much easier.
Like with your Google Calendar or something.
Additionally, tagging all the content on the site, which would go along with the content audit to just increase search functionality and speed.
So overwhelmingly, we feel like these amendments are imperative to the overarching success for Startup Weekend in the foreseeable future. As we mentioned, they have 1,205 proposed Startup Weekend plan in the works for 2015, which is just a significant number. So by increasing the amount of users that use the provided resources, Startup Weekend is better positioning themselves to continue to grow these local communities, continue to generate that momentum, and also to establish consistency across their events that they provide. So I'd like to thank you so much for watching our presentation, and also thank Startup Weekend and Startup Education for being here today and really being an amazing client throughout this whole process. You guys have been wonderful.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yeah, you guys go first. You guys
I have a question around process. So I was interested in your remote user testing and what that looked like. You mentioned I used kind of a tool.
Yeah.
Can you get a little more detail?
Yeah, sure. So we actually, and for everyone, we used InVision, and the way that we kind of recreated this, the ability to comment, is that we sent them each individual InVision links. And when you use InVision, there's a commenting option, so you can go and click a comment, and then we could use that individual user's link to see what they wrote on it.
You can do it here. When you click comments, and you can click anywhere, and you can leave a comment on any section of the page.
And since it was my InVision account, I get an email when they comment and what the comments are, so we can go back and look at them.
That's great. And is this kind of a pricey tool?
No, it's free.
Oh, it's free.
Well, I think there's a free trial.
Free trial.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah. But it's been really helpful. It's normally a tool for just creating clickable prototypes, but they also have this functionality. So that was really helpful for us. With, as we mentioned, I don't think we mentioned where all these people were from, but we have some from Australia, we have some from Brazil, we have some just around the United States, but most of the stakeholders that we spoke with were not local. So getting their feedback was really great. Technology, guys. Any other questions? Yeah, that's.
I think you guys did a great job. I really enjoyed the design. I was just wondering if you found any of the users might need to access the site during the start of the weekend? And would they access via mobile or just desktop?
Totally. That was kind of the next steps that we were thinking about. Again, this was really like building the foundation, but definitely it was something that we had discussed, even just with getting feedback from organizers real time, because again, it's that like drop off rate after they've done the event. It's getting that feedback, and people just don't usually they just don't have the time to go and do that. So having them able to do that throughout the event is definitely something that we're thinking in future steps. Great.
I think
Yes.
I'm so impressed and blown away by what you guys have presented, and I'm sure you guys introduced at the beginning of the conversation, Director of Circuit Education, but the way in which we operate is all volunteer-based. So all of these community organizers are volunteering their time. We're just a three-person team, particularly to Circuit Education, running a global entity. So we are completely dependent on the experiences that they have in which we can scale anything that we do. So this process that they're first engaging with our community is so vital, making a great first impression, getting our events and our communities off the ground. So I just am enamored with the presentation and cannot wait to take this up to the strategies. So great job.
Thanks.
Awesome job, guys.
You guys like a sandwich?
We got you guys something.
Oh, yeah, we have a small.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
as new web designers,
I know,
clerks, and art supplies, and Chris McCullough is the highest grade clerk. Just don't drop them because the lead is very fragile. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking about? And we'll debrief actually. We can go somewhere and debrief. I had a thought, but let's where? Oh, Cynthia.
Yeah, let's go. Upstairs to borrow.